Hello, it's Kendra, and when you are watching this, it is Thursday, which means it is time for another edition of Yarn Tales, which is the series I'm doing right now where I am making myself a reading shawl one book at a time. I read a book, tell you about the book, I design a stripe or chapter of my shawl that pertains to the book or things that I'd like to remember about it in the long term, and then I stitch it up and show you the end result. On the end screen, you will find a link to all the previous chapters if you are interested, but as it stands, this is currently what my shawl looks like. And I am 4 books in. Today, we are working on book number 5, so chapter 5 of the Yarn Tale Shawl, which is the book Station 11. I read the book Station 11 via audiobook, and it was very enjoyable to listen to. However, the story took a while to reel me in any real sense. The basic premise of the story is that there is a pandemic that hits the world. It is a flu that kills people very rapidly, and many of them. Because of this, it also takes out all of the infrastructure, such as things like electricity and governments and all of the things that, you need people who are well and not dying to run. The book is told non-sequentially, so it jumps back and forth through several different people's perspectives over time, but there are a few things which overarching draw the stories together, and there's kind of the breadcrumbs along the way, and you start connecting this person to that person and whatever. I did find at the beginning of the book that I really did not care about any of the characters, and it took a while for them to get to somebody who I did care about. And that was kind of the same way through the whole book. There were exactly 2 characters through the whole book that I really cared what happened to them. And I wouldn't say they weren't the main characters, because there really was, I guess there is one main girl who is followed from being a girl through being a woman in the story. But the other people kind of come in and out to varying degrees. But I don't want to give you any more information about that, because that would just ruin the whole, way it happens. What I will tell you is the things that pertain to what I'm thinking about for this chapter of the shawl. Now, I've mentioned before that doing the shawl has already changed the way that I am reading, so it is making me think along the way, what do I want to pull out? So, at the beginning of the book, there is a paperweight, and it is described in pretty good detail on this idea that the girl is looking into the paperweight, and she sees, fog, and it looks like a sky, and it's all kind of, you know what those glass-blown orb kind of paperweights look like, where there's lots of, speckling and bubbles and things. And I knew that I had been yarn ferried some yarn from my husband's coworker a while ago, and I thought that there would be something in there, some probably mystery yarn to me, that I could use. So I knew that I was going to use some of the Mary yarn, and I found some, and this is actually the yarn I'm going to use. I have no clue what it is, but it's a blue and white speckle, and it kind of reminds me of the sky. It's a little tumultuous, but at the same time, it's very, very pretty, and I think that it's going to end up looking both random and very ordered, which is kind of how the book turns out. The other thing about it is there is in addition to the paperweight, another theme and another item that is kind of followed is a graphic novel or comic book. And because of that, I want to do panels for this section of the shawl. So I am thinking of doing a waffle stitch, which will make little squares, kind of like you would have in the Sunday comics, where there's all little squares and little pictures in them all. So I'm going to do a waffle stitch in this yarn, and my plan is to use as much of this as I can, maybe all of it. We'll see how far it goes. I don't want to make too big a piece, but I would like to make a relatively substantial section and use up all of that yarn. I also wanted to mention why I chose to read Station 11. First of all, it struck my interest because it was available for free via my state library, and that is always good when it comes to audiobooks because they are crazy expensive. But the book was initially drawn to my attention because I was watching a YouTube video about covers, and if you don't know, there are usually multiple covers to a book. Obviously, it makes sense that there are different covers by language, so something in English and something in Spanish are going to have different looking covers. However, there are different covers released in the US and Canada, so the North American cover, and what they release in the UK. they are very often not the same, and the kind of prevailing way of doing a cover in the different places is obviously different. So I had watched a YouTube video of a couple of booktubers who were comparing their different covers from North America and the UK and like picking and choosing which one they liked better. And one of the books that they covered was Station 11. Otherwise, I'd actually never heard of the book. Then I noticed it was available, and then I was listening to several other BookTube people talk about things that they had read, and I kept hearing about this book, and I didn't really know what it was going to be about. The synopsis basically tells you that the book starts with an actor who dies on stage. Ba-dum-bum. And then you just get to, like, go from there. But that actually, I mean, it's important, but it's not important, if that makes any sense. It doesn't really give you a good sense of the book, I guess. I mean, it's an important event, but it doesn't tell you what you're getting into, which is kind of bothering me about a lot of synopses lately. They don't seem to be telling me what I'm getting into appropriately. A lot of them are very misleading. They want to make everything into a romance. And everything is not a romance. There are lots of probably more important relationships in life than romances. But I don't market the books. I don't even read most of them. I just read a sampling. So anyways, I'm going to go and stitch this up, and then I will show you what I come up with. And here we have the finished product. I did use all of this blue and white yarn, and you can see that I worked the waffle stitch, which was very pleasant in this yarn. I was like, oh, kind of sad I didn't have more of this yarn to play with in that style, but maybe I'll do something in the waffle stitch soon. However, I don't usually like stitches that have a particular front and back, though the shawl is turning out to have a lot of those just because design stitches that have noticeable motifs tend to be that way. But this is the front side, and this is the back. So it's slightly waffled, but you don't have the defined squares, you know, like a graphic novel, in the colors, like a paperweight. So that was Chapter 4, Station 11. Like I said, I do recommend the book. It is worth hanging in for just a little bit till you hit, you will find a character, I'm sure, who you gravitate towards eventually, because there is quite an assortment. If you have any book recommendations for me, leave them down below. As I always say, I don't like mysteries and I don't like scary things. But other than that, I am pretty open to different types of books. And I will see you all next time. Bye!